The Paths of Transfer, a 3-part series on when modeled teaching sticks and when it slips. Part 1, when learning goes sideways. Drift, digression, and fixedness. Introduction. Back in February, I shared an article, What's Your Transfer Type?, where I first introduced the transfer framework as a way to make sense of how learners carry modeled learning into their own practice. That piece laid out the big picture: reliable, workable, and inconsistent transfers, each with their own patterns. This fall, I want to dig deeper. Over the next 3 articles, I'll walk through each row of the framework, not as abstract categories, but through real stories from my own learning, my coaching of teachers, and moments with students. Each part will look at how transfer plays out, what it tells us, and how we can respond. We'll start at the bottom of the arc, the inconsistent row. Drift, digression, and fixedness may take different shapes, but they all signal shaky knowledge or intent. They're the places where learning goes sideways, and also where feedback, teaching, and coaching has the clearest chance to help. Digression. Just last month, I found myself in the middle of a digression while modeling a lesson. The district I was working in was implementing a new writing framework alongside their existing curriculum. I'd attended the training, read the materials, and I thought I was ready. But when I stepped in front of a room full of middle schoolers and their teachers, the first model was rough. I hesitated, skipped steps, and used the materials clumsily. Instead of working under a document camera, I ran it from a slideshow, which made it worse. I barreled forward, ignoring things I knew better, like activating background knowledge, while the kids quietly tuned out. The lesson didn't completely drift off course, but it wasn't intentional either. My transfer attempt was a digression. Afterward, I knew what had gone wrong. I didn't yet have deep knowledge or thorough experience with this framework to hold it together perfectly. I wasn't entirely clear on what I was doing or where I was going. So I went back, studied again, watched examples, and tried once more. And then again. And again. Each time, my transfer improved. Am I okay with teachers and leaders seeing less than stellar first attempts? Absolutely. Because credibility doesn't come from pretending to be flawless. It comes from showing that growth is real, even for those of us leading the work. Coaching, teaching move. When you see digression, steady the ground. Build knowledge, keep learners close to the model, and confirm their effort. They're in the ballpark. Now help them find their footing. Fixedness. Several years ago, I co-led an online institute with a colleague I admired greatly. She was a brilliant thinker and presenter, but on this day, she chose to read her workshop straight from a script. What unfolded was unsettling. In juggling her slides, document, camera, and notes, she accidentally shared her entire screen and the script so the audience could read along before she spoke. Participants filled the chat with warnings, but she pressed on, oblivious. This was fixedness. Transfer with rigid fidelity, but without being receptive to the moment or aware of the audience. Her intent was to deliver the content exactly as written, but the effect was stilted and disconnected. Later, when I checked in with her, she admitted she didn't know the material as well as she wanted and didn't feel comfortable going off script. The script was her lifeline. Coaching, teaching move. When you see fixedness, expand flexibility. Encourage learners to reference materials, but to put them aside often enough to try teaching the content in their own words. Fidelity is safer than chaos, but growth depends on stepping beyond the safety of the script. Drift. A 3rd grader once told me he wanted to adapt Little Red Riding Hood into a Five Nights at Freddy's story. When I checked on his work, his notebook was full of drawings of spooky animatronics chasing guards around an abandoned pizza parlor. No writing, no storyline, and no trace of Red or the Wolf. He didn't really know the fairy tale. He didn't really know Freddy's all that well either. He had drifted. We stopped and sketched the original tale into 5 parts: the errand, the warning, the wolf, the grandmother, and the rescue. With that anchor in place, he swapped the theme to something he knew better: Among Us. What emerged? Little Red Riding Sus was clever, faithful, and creative. Coaching teaching move. When you see drift, anchor knowledge. Learners can bring plenty of creativity, but first they need the guardrails that let that creativity attach to something solid. Pulling it together. Digression, fixedness, and drift may look different, but they share the same root. They happen when knowledge is shallow and intent is murky. One wobbles, the other clings, and the third wanders. All 3 are novice moves. Our task as teachers and coaches is to see which one is happening in front of us and respond accordingly. Tighten the guardrails, strengthen the knowledge, or clarify the purpose.